Welcome to an episode of the podcast Art Insiders New York. My name is Anders Holst. The theme of the podcast is New York, with a focus on behind-the-scenes conversations with fascinating people who are making an impact in the world of art, design, and architecture. Today we are making history. This is the first time we're doing an interview al fresco at Storm King Art Center. We are on tour with President John Stern throughout the 500-acre outdoor museum located in New York's Hudson Valley, where visitors experience large-scale sculptures and site-specific commissions under open sky. As we move along, John tells fascinating stories about the history of the center and of the many installations by artists like Mark di Suvero, Maya Lin, Andy Goldsworthy, Richard Serra, Joel Shapiro, Alexander Liebermann, Isamu Noguchi, and many more. Storm King is celebrating 60 years of nurturing a vibrant bond between art, nature, and people, creating a place where discovery is limitless. Hop aboard and join us. So, John, we are outside here, this beautiful building.
Yes. My grandfather, Ted Ogden, moved up in this hamlet of Cornwall, Mountainville. And when Vermont Hatch died in 1959, my grandfather really wanted to preserve this beautiful house and estate. And that really was the origin of Storm King.
Oh, I see. It's a beautiful building.
It is. And now we use it as having our indoor galleries.
Yeah. And it's perfectly positioned here too, right on top of the hill.
Exactly, and this is the high point of our 500 acres. So when you come up here, you get a 360 view of our landscape and our 500 acres, and then beyond the Hudson Highlands.
Yeah. So Storm King is the name of the mountain we're sitting on?
Well, close. My grandfather took the name Storm King from Storm King Mountain, which is maybe 3 miles or so from here.
Yeah.
And it is right up from the Hudson River. There's a great story of the name of Storm King because it was a writer in 1850 who wrote wonderful prose about this mountain.
Yeah.
And he suggested to the town of Cornwall that it should have a much better dramatic name. It had been called Butter Hill, and he said to the town, how about Storm King? Because it was almost like a fjord. It rises so amazingly from Hudson River. It also, as you come south, you're getting into the narrowest part of the river, and so you're going down to West Point, and it's really just stunning. So my grandfather knew it was a great name, and so he wanted to start this new art center as Storm King Art Center.
I love the name. I think it's wonderful. It's poetic, and it's like the landscape with all these sculptures.
I'm just gonna look here and show Saul Lewitt.
Yeah.
And you're seeing some of our native grasses that we started planting about 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And early on, there were thoughts of maybe the focus should be Hudson Valley painters.
Yeah.
And we had an early exhibition in 1963 of Winslow Homer, who had painted in 1878. But my grandfather was really looking for an art media that would work with land, because he loved land and landscaping.
Yeah.
He bought the estate of his friend not only for that building and the hill, but also these meadows that we're seeing.
Yeah.
And so eventually he got 200 acres. And then he started buying sculpture in Europe first, in Austria, in a famous place where a number of artists were working.
Yeah.
That was in 1961. The big moment was in 1966 when my grandfather went up to see David Smith's home in the Adirondacks, Bolton Landing.
Uh-huh.
The artist had died after a car crash about a year before my grandfather went to see the estate. And that was David Smith's home. And my grandfather saw there 89 sculptures outside with long views, Lake George. And ultimately, after a second visit, he bought 13 David Smiths. It was the largest acquisition ever of one time of David Smith's works. That was the light bulb for my grandfather of what Storm King could be.
Yeah.
And from that point on, it was all about collecting and getting loans for large-scale works. Originally, it was a number of works here when my grandfather had on loan. He died in 1974. And our director, David Collins, and my father, Peter Stern, changed the aesthetic a little bit of having each sculpture have its own views and lots of space.
I see. So the first 13, are they spread out?
Actually, the David Smiths were shown behind the museum building, the house we were talking about. Those actually were meant to be sort of clustered together, and they still are, but we wanted to show them in the way that David Smith showed them as sort of fields of sculpture, if you will.
I see.
And now we're down in the fields, and we're about to come and see what we call the Mark di Suvero field.
Yeah.
Mark di Suvero has shown multiple works of his I-beam sculptures starting in 1976, and this was the first time that we had sculptures down in the south. These were farm fields, and my grandfather also brought his business up here, which was a manufacturing business, but also he had a dairy farm.
I see.
And so eventually we got another 300 acres. We're now looking at several works of Mark di Suvero's. We have had a number of exhibitions. Right now we have 11 of his works here.
Okay.
We'll get closer to that work that has the highest point is 92 feet high.
Yeah.
E equals MC squared, and that was the first time this work has been shown in the U.S. We just installed it in July.
So how do you decide the site for each sculpture? Is there a master plan, or is it more or less you take it one step at a time?
One step at a time, and I think the siting of these sculptures is critical, and that's been largely the vision of our director, David Collins, and more recently with senior curator Nora Lawrence. And I think we also work with the artists often about the siting.
Yeah.
And now, what's wonderful about this experience for people is that you don't have to know or be intimidated about contemporary art to enjoy seeing this art in the landscape, and every visit is different.
Yeah.
Today it's a beautiful sun with some snow that we had last weekend. When you come back in the spring or the summer, it will be a completely different view with, all the trees, all the leaves. And of course, people love to have it to visit in the fall. That's our peak weekends.
Yeah. Well, this is just stunning, and I guess it's new all the time in different over the day and over the month, over the seasons. It's just it's incredible, and it's sort of an exploration. I love that. It is. Opens up. You turn a corner, and then there's a new vista. It's almost like a golf course. That's about swearing here, I guess. But they do it. The golf course is really nice. Every time you turn, it's a new thing. And same thing here. I mean, it's just things happening all the time.
So, a few things I wanted to talk about. One is this alley of trees, of pin oaks that my grandfather seeded in the 1960s. We're seeing a lot of birds here. We call Canadian geese, but now I think they're New York geese forever.
They stayed.
And then here's an example on our right of a work, Magdalena Abakanovic. She died a few years ago, but sarcophagi and glass houses. And this was a work that was given to us by the artist. About 3 years ago, we got a grant from the NEA, and that helped us to conserve it and move it because the landscape had changed. Some of the trees that you see here, we'd had it on the east part of the site, and it's a big deal to move it, but it's fantastic to see it, especially in the summer. And it needs those trees to have it more intimate.
I see.
For the experience.
I see. And the geese, they love it here too. Are they welcomed here, or are they a nuisance?
Both. But we do have a lot of wildlife, and one of our artists who's loaned a work that was in an exhibition a few years ago. The work was untitled Bees Making Honey, and so it basically started having an apiary, and it's been fantastic for education. So you can come on in the summer, and every Saturday we'll have the beekeeper give a talk at the work about bees and how they live and how important they are to our future.
Yes. Now, can you tell me a little bit about Mark di Suvero, though? Because I think that he has a somewhat strategic impact on Storm King.
Absolutely.
How did that come about?
So my grandfather met him in 1967, and he bought a wonderful work that was really an indoor work with his early sculpture of wood and rubber tires. But after my grandfather died, my father met Mark at the Whitney Museum. And he had a retrospective in 1975. And my father said, "What are you doing with these large-scale works that he'd put up in public art around the 5 boroughs in New York?" And my father said, "What are you planning to do afterwards?" And he said, I don't have a plan." And my father said, "How about loaning us at Storm King?" And we started with 5 works in 1976, and that was also the first time we were really going toward the south in land that we were eventually got for Storm King. And so today you'll see 11 works of his. We've also had a number of exhibitions, including one off-site exhibition on Governor's Island in 2011 and 2012. And it was our first time doing that, and it was wonderful because 800,000 people saw it over 2 summers. It was great for more awareness of Storm King. For many years, Storm King was thought of as a special gem that people discovered, which is great. But in the last few years, we really wanted to be more in the art world and for everyone to see and have this experience. So we've quadrupled visitation over the last 10 years.
Well, that's wonderful. I read an article about Mark di Suvero when he was here. He was up in the cherry picker.
Yes.
He was 83 at the time, or something like 85 maybe? I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you, most recently when E=mc² was installed in July, he was up there. He is going to be 87 this year in September, But he's an amazing artist. It's been a privilege to get to know him.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so he's risking his life for the art.
Well, he is very proud to be in the union of crane operators, among others, and he really learned and fell in love with steel. And I-beams, and he can move and make it curve, and it just is something that for him, I think he loves, especially seeing his work here, because he wants people to engage. He wants people to go inside the work. And he also he's been very generous with other artists. It's an example of great relationships over time with artists that we've had in the last several decades.
It's very impressive. So we pass the Suvero's huge sculptures on the left-hand side, and we were traveling along this beautiful road, and all of a sudden, this looks like a sailboat without a mast and a mermaid painted on the side in the middle of the pond. What is that?
Yes, so that is Roy Lichtenstein's Mermaid, which is the first ever mural from a contemporary artist that was in the America's Cup in 1995. So this was raced by the U.S. team against New Zealand. They didn't win, but it was really fantastic. And the sails, which we don't have, had that theme of the mermaid. And after its retirement, one of our late trustees, knew the yachting community.
Yeah.
Were able to get this gift of the mermaid. And so we've had it for many years and worked with the foundation, which has been great.
I like that because it's so bold. It's very different. You just put it straight into the pond on a small little island.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful.
Breaks off the experience here.
I will tell you, in terms of wildlife, they have their say. So the idea early was to have long grass that sort of gives you the sense of water. However, the geese had other plans, so that never actually happened. Yeah. I will tell you that these are not just rocks. This is going to be part of our Outlooks series, in which each year we have a artist, usually an emerging artist, sometimes a mid-career artist.
Yeah.
This year, Martha Tuttle is making these sculptures in this field, and so we work with the artist, and Mike Seaman, who's our director of facilities, worked with Martha and got these boulders, and then she's coming back and to create these sculptures, and sort of thinking of cairns that you would see in hiking.
Yeah.
And so it's the early part of the work, and will open in May 9th.
Is there any danger you're running out of space?
Yes, in the sense that we have this aesthetic of each work having lots of space.
Yeah.
Having said that, for example, this field you'll see it's only really one or two or a handful of works.
What is that over there?
Yeah, so that's Ronnie Bladen's Three Elements.
Yeah.
What we have been doing in the last few years is hosting an artist in residence program for the summer with the Shandaken projects, and that has been fantastic. And there's a house in the south. We have 3 artists at a time from June till September. The idea is just to have Storm King as inspiration for these artists.
I see.
There is no expectation of work for these, and when they're selected, they can be here for 2, 4, or 6 weeks as they wish.
I see.
And it's almost like a retreat and thinking about their next part of their career. And it's a way for us to support artists beyond just having exhibitions.
I see. And that is artists of all kinds. Can be painters.
Exactly. Cultural producers.
Interesting.
And it's a partnership with Nick Wiest, who started the Artist in Residence program, Shandaken.
Yeah. You know, it's so interesting when you see, we talked about this, the poetry of the landscape and these sculptures that are positioned so beautifully. You almost associate that to places of worship.
Yes.
I mean, cross-cultural. I mean, like the Vikings probably would love one of these Mark di Suvero's things. I think they would really enjoy that because it has it has a powerful impact on your experience.
Absolutely. This is Four Corners.
Beautiful.
And this is a work that, again, shows you the sighting is so critical. But this is from the 1970s, Frosty Myers, and it's wonderful to see on a sunny day like this. It's actually one of the most shown on social media.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Is this the most popular one?
I don't know if it's but it's like the top 5.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what do we have there? We have aluminum. Is that
exactly?
copper?
So each element that you're seeing of this sort of cube is a different material. So you're looking at stainless steel. You're looking at bronze and concrete and copper.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what is your favorite? Am I allowed to ask that question?
Well, you're allowed to ask you're allowed to ask the question, but it's the same as, saying, "What's your favorite child?"
I know.
So I will just say that among the
top 5.
I would just say the works that really stay with me, particularly are the site-specific commissions.
Yeah.
Over time, and particularly the ones that I've had the privilege of seeing. So we're going to see one now, Maya Lin's wave field. Every time we've had asked an artist to do a site-specific commission, we've given them as much time and freedom as possible.
Yeah.
With Maya Lin, from the time we asked her to the time we unveiled this amazing work, it was about 9 years. It was so much worth it because Maya took so much good time to think about what she wanted to do.
Yeah.
And when she figured it out, it was extraordinary, and we're going to see it in a minute. It is a real aha moment.
Coming
the
across
Highlands,
the field here.
yeah.
I love it.
And
look
now,
at that. Wow.
You're looking at a site that's 11 acres and 7 waves inspired by mid-ocean waves, and she studied the science. This is the 3rd of 3 wave fields that she's done, one at the University of Michigan and one in Miami in front of a federal courthouse. And the first one was 10,000 square feet, then 30 square feet in Miami. This one is 243 square foot, and the waves are 10 to 15 high, but the length is about 350 feet. And you're seeing it at an amazing time because you're seeing on the north side the snow, and you can see where people have enjoyed going up and down. And then on the other side, you're probably seeing mostly grass, but you can see how she was connecting with the ridge line. And then also she grew up in Ohio, and she'd seen Native American tombs in the fields.
It's so interesting. When I saw this for the first time, I associated that to my family comes from Uppsala. Uppsala and Lund is like Cambridge and Oxford. And in Uppsala, outside of Uppsala, they have the old king's graves. And they are mountains almost like this one, but steeper. So when we were kids, we used to run up and down, and of course in the winter you could take a sled down, whatever. And it came back to me when we were walking around these waves. It was a beautiful experience. I remember that.
My grandfather, when he expanded Storm King's land by buying land, he was taking land that had been, part of it had been devastated by the construction of the New York State Thruway, which is we're hearing right now, and is our western border, and it came right through Mountainville. The brilliant landscaper Bill Rutherford, who worked here for 45 years sculpting the land for art, and this was the last gravel pit. There had been huge gravel pits, and he used all that gravel to make some of the hills that you see and some of the platforms for sculpture, but it all looks very natural. This was the last of the gravel pits, and so what Maya took almost all of the gravel that was here, that and soil and native grass, turned into these 7 waves.
It's just amazing because we see in front of us a green field. This is difficult to explain on a podcast, but it's a green field, green grass. We see these waves, and on the northern side of the waves, the snow is still there. And on the southern side, I guess, there would be grass, right? So we have that aspect, and then we have the shadows of the sun on top of these waves. So it's quite a sight, I have to say.
And then if you come back in spring and summer and the fall, you're also seeing that beautiful pinout alley going down to the south and then down to the artist in residence program.
It's just magnificent.
What's wonderful about winter, where we are now in January, you're also getting a little bit of a preview of Andy Goldsworthy's Storm King Wall, which was also another great site-specific commission from 1997, 1988.
Yeah.
And after spending several walks, I think he was here for at least 5 weeks in 1995.
Yeah.
And he really wanted to think about something that would really feel like home. And what he saw was these dilapidated but beautiful stone walls that had been for the 19th century for farmers. He did this wall, and we'll see it. It runs, if you put it all in a straight line, it's about half a mile.
Okay.
But it goes around the trees and really hugs them, if you will.
It's one of my absolute favorites. Yeah. How that wall is doing the slalom around the trees and then dives into the pond and comes up on the other side.
Yes.
I mean, it's really fun. I mean, it's a great piece of art.
It is, and what's wonderful was when my father and David Collins were working with Andy.
Yeah.
He asked at the end of the fall of 1997 with his he had his 5 wallers from the UK, and he said, I really would love to come back, take it out of the pond and have it all the way here, and now you can see. Yeah. And this part is just straight. Yeah. It's just a straight wall because there aren't the trees to go around.
Yeah.
I will also say that it stops right at the border of the New York State Thruway. He has said he would love to have it continue on the other side. And we actually have a 7-acre field, and so it's possible.
Maybe you should fly over though.
Yes.
It reminds me of Ireland. When you drive on this Irish coast, I think
yes.
on the west side, there's a lot of these farmers. They have these stone walls.
Yeah.
It's fun, and I think it's a beautiful piece of art.
It is, and what's also lovely is that he'll come back, Andy, with one of the wallers every 2 or 3 years. We'll walk through the entire wall. He'll put flags on it for conservation or maintenance. And it's interesting because when we did the wall, he would have been happy if we decided not to maintain it and just see how it it starts to change.
Yeah.
But he was happy that we decided we wanted to maintain it. And so the waller will come and stay for a week here.
Yeah.
And most recently, a lot of time he spends not just maintaining the wall, but also educating people, because people say, "What are you doing?" Because it's so fascinating.
So is he using an old method?
We have actually a small video about this when they were making it, because it was so amazing. So the wallers work incredibly fast, and we got all of the stones from our property.
Oh, I see.
And the first part of it, as you were saying, that goes around the trees down into the pond, they did that in less than 7 weeks.
But that's astonishing, because if you look at that wall, it's pretty thick, it's pretty solid. I mean, I was thinking, that must have taken years to do. But
it's all dry stone.
Oh.
So it's all just gravity.
Oh,
so,
nothing, no concrete, nothing?
No.
Wow. So can I ask you, Ralph Ogden?
Yes. He went by Ted.
Ted.
Yeah, Ted Ogden.
And what kind of man was he?
He was, as a grandfather, he was fantastic. He had really energy, a visionary, but I didn't know that as a kid. But I did see how happy he was, and he loved going around. For years in the summers, I would go around with him in his car, and he just wanted to see work being done in the land that he owned, including Storm King, including his dairy farm.
Yeah.
But he was someone who loved all things new. And he didn't know much at all about art, but his wife was very interested in art. And he was very interested in getting new artists and having art that would work in land. And it turned out to be perfect timing, because in the 1960s, Mark di Suvero, Richard Serra, lots of artists were starting to do large-scale work, earthwork. He just loved it, and he was doing this in his retirement. He was very smart. He brought my dad, his son-in-law, to run the business.
Yeah.
And actually, my father was from the beginning sort of a partner in Storm King, but the first time we had a board meeting in 1960, my grandfather was giggling with his lawyer, and he said to my dad, "You're going to be the chair and the president, and basically you're going to do all the paperwork, and I'm going to have all the fun of collecting." So
he liked to hang with the artists?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He had a son, my uncle, but my uncle died in a car crash in college. I think he also just loved having that, the relationships with artists. He really wanted to have fun in his last years.
Yeah.
And do something for this community. I look back and I think, I don't know how to have that courage to just start something like that, not knowing what it's going to be.
Yeah.
But by the time he left, it was very clear what we were going to do.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. People really take time to enjoy this site and the art that you find.
Yeah.
And it's always different. And I see this now.
Ask you that. Is that Mark di Suvero?
That's Pyramidian and 60 feet high.
Wow.
And I will say that I-beam that is horizontal is floating. So it's you'll see it on a windy day. It'll be moving, and when it's very windy, it'll clang to the other four I-beams that make up the pyramid, and you can hear that clanging all the way to the hill.
Wow!
So it's, for many years he hadn't decided what to do with that I-beam, and it was actually just sitting on the floor, and finally, right under the sculpture.
Yeah.
And David Collins, my father, said, "Mark, we really want you to decide," and he did. And so you'll see on a plaque, this work was starting and then finishing. It was 12 years.
Yeah.
But it was just because of that I-beam.
How tall is that one over there? Now we can see it.
Yeah.
Really
so you're seeing
incredible.
the top of equals MC squared, and you're seeing those stainless steel I-beams, and that's 92 feet high. And now you're just seeing the top. We're so thrilled to get that work because it was made in France for an exhibition. I saw it in 1997. Just to get those works transported, it's a heavy lift.
So how can people contribute to Storm King? Membership?
Absolutely. Memberships are critical.
Yep.
Stormking.org.
Yep.
And it's wonderful because then you're come as often as you wish, and we have all kinds of events.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm going to go down here to the south.
Yeah.
Yeah, members can come early, and we have all kinds of great education programs. We have moonlit walks. Wow. We have concerts and summer camps for both high schoolers and middle school kids. Every year I have to raise money to keep going. And also, though, we have special projects.
Yeah.
So like the site-specific commissions, and also for exhibitions and terrific loans.
Yeah. Is it so that for each object there is a specified donor or a donors list, or?
Very thrilled to have so many great supporters and donors, and a wonderful board. You know, the organization has moved from my family. It's a family legacy, and I'm thrilled to be in this position and keeping that legacy. But really, we've become during my father's time, after my grandfather, he really made it public.
Yeah.
And we're a 501c3 museum.
I see.
We've got a great board, and very supportive. We do an annual gala and that sort of thing. But yeah, and then there are people that give specifically to commissions, to exhibitions.
Yeah. What is on your to-do list?
Well, this is a very exciting year because it's our 60th anniversary.
Oh.
We're having great exhibitions and loans coming up. We're also working with Serra Z on a site-specific commission, which is going to be unveiled in 2021, Fallen Sky. So a lot of also special programming, concerts and the like in 2020. And we're also thinking about our future, accommodating more people. It's important to know, because we're just over an hour's drive from Upper West Side of Manhattan.
Yeah.
But also more and more people are coming in public transit on buses. We have two buses a day when we're open that drop you right at Storm King, and then they'll pick you up in the afternoon.
And where do you depart Manhattan?
Port Authority and Coach USA. We also have people coming on the train, and we have a shuttle from Beacon to take you to Storm King. More and more people are coming on public transit, which is great. From May to October, we have family programs, both around art and nature for our site, which are very, very popular.
When people come here and visit Storm King, what kind of an experience do they normally have? What do they feel when they leave?
One of the things I just love is walking around when we're open on a weekend.
Yeah.
And I talk to people, and generally people are really awed and delighted to be here. And there's a kind of elevated emotion about this discovery, and just looking at the landscape, there's a heron down there on the pond, right on the ice, it's absolutely beautiful.
Absolutely beautiful. Do you feed them?
No.
You're not allowed to?
We don't want to, and it's good for them.
Oh, you don't want
not to? Yeah.
Domestic
guys? Yeah, exactly.
I see. Gotcha.
But I think when people come to Storm King, they're just really happy generally, and really grateful for having this place. And we have people who come back every year for Father's Day, and people have traditions to work here. It's inspiring.
Yeah.
When I started, I think we had 12 employees. I think we have 54 now, and that's not even including our service, or VSS, who work during the season. I should say that we're open from the first week in April into mid-December, and we also have winter weekends.
I see.
So people can see it in snow. One of the things I wanted to do when I took over as president in 2010 is to make this much more accessible to our community, both here in Cornwall and Newburgh. And I'm so thrilled. We have partnerships with a number of schools in Newburgh.
Yeah.
It's been fantastic for the students and for their families. I'm thrilled that more and more people have the opportunity to be at Storm King and to learn. And
that's wonderful. So your vision has been to make it more accessible. You quadrupled the number of visitors to make it. The high season is the fall?
Is the fall, yes.
Why is that? Why don't people come out in the spring?
Well, people do, but I think there's something about the leaves turning. We have an incredible collection of trees, as you can see here.
Yeah.
And people just love that time. As we look down here, we're also looking down the Moodna Creek, which has widened a lot. There's a hiking track, a path down there.
Yeah.
And 2 years ago, we did a show on climate change called Indicators, artists addressing climate change. And one artist, David Brooks, who I saw last night, did an amazing work where he took 30 elements that you would see in the forest, like a twig and a stone and a root. And he found these and that really spoke to him. And then he took them into a house that we have on our property, and he made a mold, and then he made a bronze of that element of nature, put it back, the original stone twig, and then put the bronze next to it. And the idea was you go on that path and you try to find the 36 works.
Yeah.
and then you see how the original, twig, is it still there?
Yeah.
And in some ways he was thinking about, when having a focus when you go into the forest and thinking about climate change, which is so big and so much data, and how do you get your arms around it?
Yeah.
And it was fantastic. And when the first time after he had installed it, he brought some friends, and I love this story. He said to me, "Well, we found 20 out of the 30," and he was taking them out. He couldn't remember where they were. So it was really kind of a scavenger hunt.
Yeah.
And it still is.
Yeah.
I want to stop here just to show Richard Serra's Scunnamunk Fork. And the name Scunnamunk is the name of the Scunnamunk Mountain to the west. My father asked him and David Collins to do a site-specific commission, and he spent time also with his wife walking the whole site, and the idea of having a field to himself, and seeing these 4 beams that are coming out of the drops in the field. Most of the time you will come here, it'll be large, long grasses.
Yeah.
And but this is wonderful today to look at the shadows. And some of those beams are as long as 54 feet. Oh. So most of it is all in the ground. But it's one of his great works. And
they're just like cutting straight into the hill.
Yes.
And then you have the shadow.
Yep.
And then you have the snow.
Yeah, and then the backdrop of Scunnamunk Mountain and the trees. So this is a great view of it. And at the time, this was the southernmost work, and then it followed Andy Goldsworthy's wall and Myelin's.
So this is on your top 5 list?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, now he's in trouble. Sure. So what do we see on the right-hand side here? Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, so this is a wonderful sculpture, a 3-legged Buddha. The artist Zhang Wan was in New York for the first time in 1998 and lived in New York for several years, and he came to Storm King. And in 2009, we were offered this work. We went to see the work in Brussels outside of a opera where he had been invited for the first time to be a director of the opera. He'd never done that before. Wow. But he started with performance art. We fell in love with this work, and what's amazing is it's 12 tons, but it's hammered copper, and it's hollow, so you can get in it. I mean, you can't, but we can. And
I'll never get out of it. I'll tell you that.
But people love it, and we did an exhibition with him in 2014.
Yeah.
He became also a Buddhist, and he spent time in Tibet, and he also collects antiques in China.
Wow.
And what's wonderful is you can see those little toes.
Yeah.
Well, there are little perforations on each toe, and he sent a huge box of incense. Thank you. The incense. He said, when you have events, put them inside, and the steam will come out.
Oh.
So he sent 1,200 sticks of incense with this, and as a result of that, it was delayed at customs.
I think I like the way that you put things together. You seem to be not, how should I say, you're playful and you
Yes.
bring in other things. You're not afraid. I really like that. There's a little bit of everything here. I mean, that's naive to say, but you have a playfulness and an openness, I think, when you look at all these objects here.
Well, I appreciate that, and I think this was interesting because
It's bold.
it's not minimalist.
No.
It's not abstract. It doesn't necessarily. You wouldn't think about it if you saw all the other works.
Yeah.
But I think that it was taking a flyer in a way. But he's an amazing artist.
Now, for the 60th anniversary, then,
Yeah.
so what is is there an installation of a, do you take loans or do you do something more permanent?
Well, we're doing a wonderful exhibition with an artist, Kiki Smith.
Yeah.
We're also we're going to have our Outlooks artist, and then we are also getting some great loans. We're also working on some really good, interesting programs of concerts and also dance.
Do you have any collaboration with Dia Beacon?
We do in an informal way. What's great about Dia Beacon has an incredible collection in this wonderful old factory, and our collection overlaps really with in terms of the time and the artists, and so I think more and more people are seeing how you can have an amazing weekend or experience coming to Storm King, going to Dia Beacon, and also Magazzino, which is also relatively new. So it's great. My grandfather was inspired by Louisiana, outside of Copenhagen, and then also Kroller Mueller, who started a sculpture park, I think in 1961. And again, it was a couple that started it.
Where is that?
That is in the Netherlands. I think it is southeast of Amsterdam. And it's surrounded by this property that is now a park. And I think it's like 17,000 square feet. And it's the Netherlands. And so I remember getting off the train and seeing a sea of bicycles, which I thought was fabulous. And when you get into the park, you get a bike.
Yeah.
And that's how people, come to the Kroller Mueller Museum.
I like that.
Yeah.
You can rent a bike here too, I know.
Yes, yeah. And that's something I'm very proud of, that we started the bikes about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's hugely popular. I want to talk about an example of a sculpture that was liberated, Joel Shapiro. It's untitled, and it was commissioned for a lobby in the Sony building in Madison Avenue in 1984. And it was David Collin, our director, his dream to liberate it out and get it outside. And what happened was Sony was moving and they couldn't have it in the new building. And they asked the artist, what should we do about, what could we, what's your input about where it should go? Thankfully, Joel Shapiro and his gallery, the Pace, said, I'd love to have it at Storm King. So they gave it to us as a gift. And it was an amazing thing to see it taken out of that atrium but on Madison Avenue in the 50s.
Yeah.
And then to see it here. And the artist just loves to see how you see it's so different in this light. So, and it's also, you can sort of see it's untitled, but it's, a figure walking, and that it reminds me of one of the early sculptures that my grandfather bought in 1961, I think, or 63.
Yeah.
Which a smaller work, which is called Man Walking.
Yeah.
So
that's a very happy sculpture.
yeah.
And she's got a great view here.
Yes.
One of the best views.
Yeah.
And she can see the three-legged Buddha over there.
And then you can also see back to the Pyramidian, that hill where the museum building is, the grade was very steep to get down here. Where the Calders now live, that was a 5-year project with all that gravel that remained from the construction of the thruway.
Yeah.
To make this sort of new platform between the museum hill at the top down here, and it has become the main way to walk down into the south very easily. I guess that was in the 1980s, and then that's when we started to get these wonderful loans from the Calder Foundation. And I think we have 3 there now. We've also had 4 at times, and then when you came in here, you saw the huge stable of Calder's, the arch, which is sort of your welcome
yes, the big
sculpture.
Black one.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I was just wondering.
Yeah.
I see.
And then
because they're sort of related to the red one there.
Yes, exactly.
In a sense.
Yes. Yeah, I think I can go out here. Well, let's take it.
Well, let's.
You're game.
Yeah, I'm game. Let's do it. I think, the only thing to avoid, I guess, is to the right.
Yeah.
No brakes on this one, right?
There are brakes. Don't worry.
Let it roll. Yeah. Don't brake. Then we're in trouble.
Yeah.
All right, so we're coming down a steep.
I think they're good
steep hill here, and so if you don't hear from me,
Jessica,
Storm King was the last place that I visited before I fell into the creek here.
Yeah. And then you're looking up toward Momotaro, which is a site-specific commission of Isamu Noguchi.
Yeah, and, I think that was the favorite.
Yeah.
That was the favorite, I think.
For my dad, that might have been so, because it was his first time working with a site-specific commission and an artist.
Yeah.
There's a great story about Isamu Noguchi coming here, and he knew one of our trustees, Cynthia Polsky, and Cynthia said, why don't you come up to Storm King, and it'd be a fun day in the country.
Yeah.
And he said, when I go to the country, it means another country. I'm a very urban guy. Yeah. But when he got here, he loved it.
Yeah.
And I think he was very delighted when he spoke to my dad, because he said to my dad, when do you need this? And my father said, whenever you finish it. Mm-hmm. And he said, what committees do I have to go in front of? And my father said, none. And so that, I think, was really enticing for him.
Yeah.
Because he'd done a lot with New York City and gotten shot down by committees, and so he did it he worked fast. It was like 2 years.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing work, and one that you can get into. Many people have taken their photos, their family holiday cards, because the work is called Momotaro, which is Peach Boy.
Peach Boy?
Yeah, and it's a well-known folktale in Japan. And this came out of getting the granite in Japan, and his team got this big boulder, and they had to cut it in half to get it off the island. And when they did, there was a slight concave, and his staff immediately said, Momotaro, Momotaro, because they were thinking of this folktale where an older couple with no kids found this huge peach coming down the stream, and they were going to have this huge feast with this amazing peach, and they cut it in half, and inside, instead of a pit, was a baby, and and they adopted the baby.
Yeah.
And the baby became Momotaro, who became a hero of the community because he found the sort of monster had been terrorizing the community for years.
I see.
And so that became the name of the sculpture. Now you're looking at a great view to the south. You're looking down at Menashe Cottageman's Suspended. You see how dramatic that hill is up to the museum building.
Yeah.
And then the beautiful ridge of Skinnymonk Mountain. And then there's a great story about this work. Alexander Liebermann, the work is called Adam. What I love about this work is that its history, it was shown in the early 1970s, I think it was 1971, and shown in the Corcoran Gallery right across from the White House. Then President Nixon ordered that he hated this work so much, and he could see it from the White House lawn. And he told the head of the National Endowment for the Arts, you must move that now. During this exhibition, so the head of the NEA had this awful order to go to the artist and say, I found an even better place for your exhibition, for your sculpture. And it was moved. And a few years later, we got it in our collection. And so I feel very proud that we're a place for asylum for persecuted sculpture.
Yes.
Which is very unlikely.
Absolutely.
But
They love it here.
Yeah.
I don't think the sculpture liked President Nixon very much.
No,
I mean,
I think that's exactly right.
You're planning ahead, and then you're planning. Okay, you can borrow things to put here, but you can also buy things. How is that process organized? Do you have a list of artists that you're pursuing, and how does that work?
Sure. We do have some artists we'd like to get some of their works on loans, and it's, it is something that our curatorial team and I are often going to artist studios, working with estates and foundations. Last year we got 2 fabulous works by Mark di Suvero we have a long time relationship with, and also with Louise Bourgeois' Eyes, and that was working with the foundation. Yeah, so it's a combination of looking at other exhibitions, going to artist studios, and then often there are opportunities that come our way.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, that is actually a Swedish artist.
Yes, finally.
Yes.
Damn.
Hans Håkansson.
Oh.
And that was recited about maybe 2 years ago by David Collins. And I love it. It's sort of like a pencil shaving, but it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
Then we're
look at that.
Looking down at, again, Alexander Liebermann.
Now we're going down again.
Yeah.
You have winter tires on this golf cart?
I feel confident that this won't be your last interview.
And that is the one you were talking.
Yes, this is Louise Bourgeois' Eyes, and what's wonderful about this is that there are 4 eyes on each side, and we got this in the summer.
Yeah.
And the first time it was lit because you can lit the eyes, and so I was not here, but the staff had a event and came at the end of the day. Was it maybe December or November? And it was shown for the first time, and they didn't know that it was going to be lit, but it's quite it's almost scary for people, but it's fabulous.
Yeah.
This is another great title, the one on the left, and it's Sia Armajani, Gazebo for 2 Anarchists. And this is one you can get in, and he really was interested for many years about the history of anarchism in America. And he was born in Iran and lives in Minneapolis, and very interested in works that engage people and public dialogue.
So this looks like a toy for giants.
Yeah.
This one over here. Who is the artist?
So Alexander Liebermann had an incredible career in Vogue as an editor, and then Condé Nast, he was the creative editor. So he had this incredible and very successful career, but he also loved art, and he learned about photography in Paris in the 20s.
Yeah.
And then he learned he became a sculptor as a hobby in his 40s.
Yeah.
And he learned how to weld. He wanted to use recycled elements, and so he used these oil tanks from underground. So we had this work in, I don't know, maybe the 80s.
Yeah.
But David Collins, our director, knew that it was not going to. He asked the artist. He said, "How long is this going to? What's the lifetime of this sculpture?" And he said, "Well, probably about 25 years." So, just before the artist died in 1999, we got his permission to refabricate the work.
Yeah.
And so we did it at Polished Talix foundry that's very near us and does great work. And so it was reborn with Corten steel.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
One of my favorites.
I've noted that you've complimented the tires, not the driver.
Yeah. No, the driver is
and that's appropriate.
The driver is perfect. So far I'm lucky to be alive. Well, what a tour. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
John, for taking the time. I mean, that was...
Is that the bear den down there?
Yeah, yes, it was down there. I don't know if it's still there.
How fast is this golf cart? They run fast, you know, those bears.
Yes.
They're pretty quick. I guess they'll have you first for lunch.
Yes.
Yeah. And then they'll go for the main course.
And I guess whoever's the slowest runner.
Yeah.
This is Art Insiders New York, and my name is Anders Holst. Thank you for listening, and be sure to visit artinsidersnewyork.com to join the conversation and subscribe to the podcast. If you enjoyed this episode of the Art Insiders New York podcast, head over to iTunes, if you're not already there, to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It's very much appreciated. Thank you. This episode was produced by UOM LLC, copyright 2020.